Well, hello, everyone. I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen, your host for this show called Heads Together. And I'm putting my head together here with Jennifer Wilner, my assistant of 8 years. Hello, Jen.
Hey, Bon.
It's good to see you.
Good
Both
to
of
see
us
you too.
indicating what kind of weather we have
Exactly.
by us, with me in Florida and you in New Jersey. I'm sorry, it's still so cold.
We're done. We're done with it.
Yeah. Well, today is March 2nd, 2021, and this marks the beginning of Women's History Month. And I am just loving the whole idea that all of this month, we are going to be featuring a wonderful woman each week on this show to talk about what's happening for assistants in this profession, who we know are 95 to 98% female. And today's episode is about working moms, particularly big. So we have an expert on that subject. But, you know, Jen, we were talking earlier that both you and I are working moms.
Absolutely.
Your daughter is now how old?
18 and a freshman in college. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what does Women's History Month mean to you? And what are you thinking?
So I'm thinking the leadership. I mean, she doesn't, she surprises us every day with how she shows her leadership and the technology, and how quickly they grasp it. So
it flipped. You used to teach her, and now she's teaching you.
I mean, right? Like last week, I were on a brief call, and my audio was kind of wonky, and she just jumped right in, and that's okay, Mom. I've got it.
She's got it. Yeah, it's awesome. I feel the same way about my son. So welcome to our visitors from all over the world. Hi, Lizzie, coming in from Paris, and Ruth in Pennsylvania, I'm pretty sure, or Jersey, and Dominique. Oh, welcome, Grace. We're welcoming all of you from all over the world to talk about working moms. So many of us are working moms, and what a hot topic for Women's History Month, which is our chance to celebrate some amazing women this month, some of whom are famous and most are not. And everyday women, like everybody on this call, me and Jen included, who are trying our best to make a living, make a life,
Make a difference.
Wow. Thanks, Jen. Absolutely. So Tatiana, welcome. And Linda Emer from Ireland. Always love Emer when you come on. So let me tell you about our special guest today. Many of you know her from LinkedIn because she and her colleagues wrote that terrific article back in June called The Heart of CEO Effectiveness. Nicki Cave has been an executive assistant for 28 years, 26 of those years at the Boston Consulting Group in Dallas. And she and her family live in a suburb of Dallas. She has 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. Nicki, I have a mental block over this. I've changed the sex of your kids. 3 girls and a boy, 24, 21, 18, and 10. 3 of them are at home. They have 4 dogs living in this house. She has a wonderful husband of 27 years, and she's a marathoner. She didn't even tell me how many marathons she's run, because I'm not sure she even knows. So she and her husband run marathons. She's a writer. At work, at BCG, she mentors, trains, and coaches her team. She's a team leader. Her official title is Administrative Services Senior Manager of 25 people on this team. So Nicki is a very experienced manager, leader of other assistants. She wrote an article, I love this title, Boston Buddies, Boston Marathon 2018. So she's from Texas and ran the Boston Marathon. So cool. Inspirational stories from overcoming life's challenges 1 mile at a time. We are so delighted to have Nicki Cave coming to us from Texas. Let us please give a nice virtual welcome to Nicki Cave.
Hi.
Hi, Nicki. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. And look, we have people from all over the world. Vanessa's from San Diego and Lynn from Ohio. Sharon, welcome from Canada. So we've got a whole wonderful group today. Many of whom I'm sure are working moms.
Thanks, Marcy. I see your comment.
Hi, Marcy. Welcome. Hey, we love having our colleagues who have our backs. So, we started a tradition last month at Black History Month where I asked some pretty rapid fire questions to help our audience get to know you, and Jen and I get to know you a little better. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions. Okay. You game?
Sure. Yep.
All right.
Ready.
Elvis or the Beatles?
Elvis.
Oh, favorite TV show as a child?
Alf. That's going to date me.
Oh, if I told you mine, it would date me, but I'm older than you. Your kid's favorite show? So
Bachelor, Frank and Gracie, I think is one, and SpongeBob for my youngest.
Gotcha. So they like Frankie and Grace, huh?
Yeah.
Fonda and Lily Tomlin love that show. Awesome. When travel is safe, where's the first place you're going to go?
To see my parents in Mobile, Alabama.
Favorite ice cream?
Oreo cookie.
If you could have only one book on a desert island, what would it be?
So I've been collecting all of the different EA crazy stories. I would take that book with me because I could probably read that over and over again and laugh the whole time.
Yeah. Maybe during our session today, you'll tell us one of the craziest. What's your favorite app?
Is Candy Crush an app? I would say that one.
Oh, is that how you relax?
Yes, that's my wind down.
Do you have a favorite movie?
I would say Breakfast Club, again, old school.
I love it. Favorite superhero?
I would have to say Aquaman.
Oh, very hunky. Favorite beverage?
I would say cream with a little coffee.
Oh, gotcha. Last thing you binge watched?
It was Firefly Lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
And lastly, what's one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile?
So I could speak Spanish fluently when I was in kindergarten and can no longer speak it, but
But you remember.
I don't remember any of it, but I remember I was able to do it because my parents would take me to translate. Because we lived in Puerto Rico for a couple of years when I was that age.
Interesting. That is fascinating. So, but wait, if you hear Spanish, are you able to understand? No.
It's like I thought it would still be in a cell back there, but
yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So let's get to the questions, Nicki. Thank you so much for pulling back the curtain a little bit on Nicki Cave. We hear so much about having it all and work-life balance, and some people don't like the word balance. They like other words. Do you have a phrase for that you use?
So my mind works where I have buckets. I kind of put, like, I have my family and personal in a bucket. I have my career in a bucket. And then I have something that's just for me in a bucket. So it's kind of like trying to keep all the buckets balanced, I guess.
Right. And on the average week, do you feel pretty successful doing that?
Yeah, I mean, the last year definitely has caused, like last year was figuring everything out. It was chaos. It was like all those buckets coming together and no routine and trying to figure out. And I think as moms and career, you sometimes feel like you're failing at it if you're like trying to be responsive, and we're working from home and we have our kids needing to help with school. And so I think it's we have to figure out like what works and when we're thrown different things. And so for me, it was really trying to figure out how those boundaries and creating some routine in that, because that when they all blend together, that's just it sets up for failure. So trying to create boundaries and figure out.
So in March, I mean, you shared with us that earlier off the air that BCG, you still haven't gone back to the office. Everybody's working from home. So not only did you have to figure it out, Nicki, back in March, it happened in March, right? We're almost at a year since this all blew up in our faces. But you had a team of 25 people depending on you to help them with their buckets too.
Yes.
Can you just bring us back and like, what was a particularly big challenge for you with that?
I think lucky for us at BCG, I think having a good support system, I think not only with our EAA team, but for the people, our key customers, I think everybody was so supportive of like, how can we get through this together? How can we still serve our clients? But how can we take care of our people and what do they need? And so it was just, I think everybody kind of communicating and saying, hey, I'm going to be offline this hour. I need to pick up my child, or I have to run out and get toilet paper because there isn't any, I'll be leaving for the grocery store. And so I think like figuring out how to communicate as a team through Slack, through the different tools that we have, creating that transparency so we could, back each other up when we did have to step out. I think that's what really got us through all of that.
Right. Interesting. And now, we just had this big storm in Texas, and you're in a suburb of Dallas. Now, you didn't lose power, but did you have to kind of do it again, where you had members of your team who lost power? And so were you now having to do a new dance with the new emergency that came up?
Yeah, for sure. And luckily, I mean, we're a worldwide company and we have offices in other locations. We had so many of our other offices just reach out saying, do you need us to back people up? How can we help you? And then even within our own office, we had, a Slack channel going, I have power at my house. Do you need to come and get warm? Like everybody was looking out for each other, which was just, I think in any crisis, like I'm so lucky to be at BCG because everyone just kind of rallies around and supports each other.
That's amazing. I mean, because I think many people on this call know that since March, Vicky Evans and I have been doing together and separately, webinars and connecting with assistants all over the world. And I have to tell you that the picture you're painting is not happening or has not happened in all companies. So it is an inspiration. And to that end, in the chat, Jen is putting in Nicki's LinkedIn profile link and the link to the article that she co-wrote about CEO's effectiveness, because Nicki invites you to connect with her. And if you have any questions for Nicki or comments, you can put them in the chat and Jen's going to help us moderate those, because Nicki said she would be happy to do that. So, you've had this 28-year career, Nicki, and it seems like you are just riding the waves as changes happen. Is it really as easy as you're making it look?
No, well, I think, and if you're in a culture that maybe isn't as strong as the teaming and the communication, like, I feel like that's something that anyone can kind of step up and try to create. If there's people on your team that are kind of like-minded and want to work together, is, just by getting your EAA team together, like, how can we support each other? How can we back each other up? How can we create this culture to where if someone is in need, that they can have that support? But because when I started BCG, I was probably 94 when the office first opened. We were a small office and we were figuring things out. And there was a time with my team, we had a bunch of turnover or different changes. And I wasn't in leadership. I was just a member of the team. And we got the team together and we talked about like what we want our brand to look like to our key customers. And what do we want to do as a team to kind of get there? But the role has evolved and changed over time.
Yeah.
And
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. And I think it's always been about how can we save our executives time. But I think it's how we do that has evolved over time. Like, I think, in the beginning, it was, even more like typing things up. I think we even had a typewriter back in the day, or, putting stickies on the door of, who actually called, or when we were printing things, the printer ran so slow, and, like all of these things that we had to deal with. And now everything's kind of via email or presentation mode, and all of these things we didn't have before. But I think as we think about the role evolving, it's still about how are we saving our executives time. And I think it's really thinking about, the calendaring and the scheduling, and really, like, now it's back-to-back Zoom calls, because our executives, everyone's trying to get one-on-one time with the executive, because they don't have that FaceTime in the office. And so I think it's really thinking about, are their calendars really aligning with how they want to spend their time and their goals? And do we understand what their goals and priorities are? And are we matching their time with that? And that's where I think, we can really add value by filtering, prioritizing, and helping them manage their time and their work-life balance. Like, that's right. When I supported an executive for 25 years, most of my career. And when I look back, I think about, was he there for his kids' events? Was he there? Like, how did he spend his time? And he was successful within BCG and the things he's done. But, is he happy with, being at his kids' events and being present, and
right.
And health and wellness? That's a whole nother topic of making sure they have time for that.
Yeah. So you probably were really great with that particular executive. As a mom yourself, you wanted to be there for your kids, and you wanted him to be there for his kids. And I'm sure you supported your team to do the same thing. So it's not a surprise to me that you've been so successful in your work. There's a quote that I often think about, and it's that if a leader makes somebody choose between their family and their work, family's going to win every time. And they will do anything to solve that. So, Nicki, can you talk about the whole working mom phenomenon? And, was it a piece of cake from the beginning, or it couldn't have been?
Yeah.
Like, talk through how that is, and help the working moms on this call do it better.
Yeah, and it goes through seasons for sure, like when your kids are young and when they're teenagers, and through different times. And I struggled, when I first was pregnant and had a child, and deciding, like, am I going to continue to work and keep my career? I think nowadays we have to have a dual income, so we really don't have much of an option. But I had different people with their different opinions telling me I should stay home, but I said, well, if you want to supplement my income, I'm happy to stay home. But when I reflect back and think about it, I think I'm a better mom because I worked, because I had that fulfillment. And when I go home, or when I'm present with my kids, I'm happy. And I think when I reflect back, if I would have stayed home, my family would have wanted me to cook and clean, and I would have been miserable, and then everybody would have been miserable. So I think, trying to, having that career and having that piece of you, I think is, and, having something you feel good about. Because, I talked about those different buckets, and when something's not going well in one of the buckets, you've got one of your things that are going well in your other buckets that you can kind of focus on, that can get you in that better mood or get you in that better place. But yeah, I think it's just, trying to, keep it all balanced. But I think the other important piece is to have something for you. Like, I think as moms, that's what we forget. We're doing everything for our career. We're doing everything for our families, and we're not doing something that kind of feels that we're passionate about. And so I do encourage people, like, for me, that's running, and that's, I enjoy, and it's great because it's exercise too. And great thinking time, great time for just me. And I have goals, running goals. But whether it's scrapbooking, whether it's cooking, whether it's, you don't want to lose that piece that kind of makes you happy and, keeps you motivated.
And have your kids fed back to you that they have been proud of you, that they didn't suffer because mom was a career person?
That is a great point. And I think, my kids, they see the work ethic, they see what they can do, the impact that they can create. And I don't care what they do as long as they have a plan and it's something, I care that they can support themselves and move out. I care about that. But I care about them coming up with, having a plan that they're passionate about and that they enjoy, no matter what that is. Because I also tell my girls, I'm like, you should be able to support yourself and not have to depend on, because you never know. Like I got lucky and I have a great husband, but my mom told me the same thing. Like, make sure you have a backup plan and you can support yourself. And so that's what I instill in my children. I hope everything works out for them, but I don't want them to have to depend on anybody, and, that they can have, their career.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So you have this team of 25. You shared that you had an executive who supported you to be a great mom, and he was a great dad. But on your team, did you ever over the years experience a team member who did not have such a supportive, who was a working mom and did not have such a supportive leader, and could you talk to that? Because not all leaders are as supportive as yours, right?
Yeah. And I think it's trying to have balance too, because while, my leader was very supportive, there were still expectations of the role. It's client service driven, high demand. There were times like when I'm not there, they feel it. And so you do have to decide on what culture and what's a good fit for you. So like I've had folks where maybe the fast paced, the high expectation environment didn't fit if they wanted to attend every one of their kids' events, or they wanted to pick them up from school every day, or if they wanted, like, that wouldn't fit with our environment. But there's roles out there that could fit with that. If you wanted to, work for a school district, or wanted to work for, maybe another company that's kind of more flexible. But I think one is trying to figure out like what the demands of the culture is and make sure that fits for you. And then I think too, is having a strong team or someone, like creating some backup plan. So when you do have a kids event or something that you need to go do, you have somebody else who can fill in for you. And I think that's why that works in our environment.
And that is brilliant, Nicki, because, in talking with assistants all over the world, so few admin teams, assistant teams have proper backup for each other, for vacations, for those times. And now we're in such a volatile time of change with people working from home, that now may be the perfect time to develop a new plan. And I mean, Nicki, is this something, like, if someone is curious about how did you do that at BCG, is it okay if people reach out to you to get some advice on that?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, in the early days, like, the culture was kind of more like, keep the information to yourself to make you stronger and better in the role. And that's what we need to move away from. Like, in order really to make the work-life balance work, having a strong team, having people that has each other's back, who lifts people up, like, that is going to help you be more successful in it. And being able to share, hey, here's everything about my person. Here's the priorities. Here's what's going to help you in your role.
Right.
Like, that's going to, and making the team look strong and not the individual, like, that's going to escalate it for everybody, the level of service that you can bring.
So when you look around the whole landscape, we're in this pandemic. We're not sure when a lot of companies are going back. In the land of working mothers, we know the hard data point is that 2 million women left the workforce in this last year in the United States. Not all assistants, but 2 million women. I just read that today in Forbes, some credible business publication. Tell me, Nicki, what are you excited about as you look forward? What are you worried about, when it comes to working moms and this landscape for women?
So I'm excited about, I think, the flexibility that is coming with the working from home. Like this is the first time I've been able to have dinner on the table at a normal time, and being able to have more time with my son to see how his day was. And, so I think there's some great things that's come out of it. I think like a long time ago, when you were in the office, you were strapped to your computer. You couldn't leave. We had an overtime schedule. Now, if something's come up, I can log off and log back on later. If there's something that, a kid's soccer game or something's going on in the evening, I can still attend the game.
Right.
But then so I think the flexibility is going to continue with the future. I think lots of companies are looking at flex time and part time in new ways. So those are the things that I'm excited about. I think what I'm worried about is more of that connection. Like as we continue with the work from home model, I know for me, and for my team, you learn so much by just hearing what's going on next to you and sharing information, and the mentorships and building those relationships is huge. And so I think those are the pieces, like how do we think about our digital platforms to keep that communication and information still flowing, even if we're not in the same office together.
Right. I have to tell you that I've gotten feedback from attendees to Heads Together saying that folks don't only come for the information, but they come to connect with other assistants and to, not only learn, but the connection is so vital. So Nicki, as we head towards the end of this, the comments are so complimentary about, the points you've made. You made reference earlier to a book about funny stories about assistants. Is there a crazy story that you think is a classic that when you get around with assistants, you say, oh, I got one for you?
Okay, I'm trying to think of what I could share. Well, and I'm also part of like the Facebook page, things where people share all their funny stories, and I try to take notes there. And I would love it if y'all have funny stories y'all want to send to me, because seriously, I want to put these together in a book. I know we've all talked about it, but I haven't seen one come out yet, but I would love to do that. Some are amazing stories. I read one where an assistant rented a crane to some necklace or something fell out of a window, and her executive asked them to get the necklace, and she rented a crane for someone to go over there and get up there and get that necklace, which you would think was impossible, and it's gone, but as EAs we figure it out, like whatever they ask us to do. So I think that's amazing, just hearing stories like that.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up.
Yes.
In my book, I refer to them as the miracle stories, the save the day stories. Assistants do whatever it takes.
Yes, even if it seems like, well, that's buy another necklace, but maybe that meant something to that person. They wanted that back. Okay, we'll get it back.
And I don't know if anybody is wondering on this call. I wonder what the price tag was for that crane. And I wonder if she or he had to get 3 estimates before they decided on the crane. I actually hired a crane to lift a kitchen island from the ground level in New York City up to the 6th floor. Yeah, those things are not cheap, let me tell you. But Olympia Dukakis, in the 25 years I worked for her, I remember early on when I was pregnant with Adam, and she's the mom of 3 kids. And I remember saying to her, Olympia, is it possible to be a great mom and a great worker? Like, how can we do this? You feel so torn. And she said, I'll never forget what she said. She said, Bonnie, I would rather have a working mother working for me than anybody else because they're forced to be so organized.
Yes.
And I think that's true. We suffer from so much guilt. I mean, Nicki, did you suffer from guilt at times, where you felt like you weren't being a good mom, not being a good assistant?
For sure. And I think, and you go through those different seasons too. And there's some seasons that are hard. Like when I had 3 kids, 5 and under, trying to juggle, everything. And, but now looking back, I would not change a thing. Like I think they've gotten great work ethics, and they've seen, a good role model. And I know that's going to help them in their life and the decisions that they make.
So let me ask you this. If there's someone listening on this call or listens to the replay and they need advice for, this is new, we're on new territory, or somebody whose child is now a certain age and has, needs that they didn't have last year or the year before, what is your best advice for them to address the issue with their team leader or their executive about, there's a new need that has arisen when it comes to being a working parent? What would you say to them, Nicki?
Yeah, I mean, that one's a hard one, but what I would say is kind of think of the solution first. Like, what is it that they need? And think through, like, do they need flex time if they work like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and had a few days off? Or kind of think of what's going to help, or is it just more flexibility and, figuring out when they can do their job, or seeing if they could kind of come up with the solution and present that to their leadership.
Right.
Sometimes, though, it may just not be a good fit with the company that you're in, because sometimes companies can't change the expectation of what needs to get done. It's still a business, and there's still things that need to get done.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right fit for things. But I know it's hard with the economy right now. And that's another thing to think about. If you just need to get through this short-term time with the company you're in,
right,
hang on, do that, and then plan for your longer term and stay motivated like that. If you think about your long-term goals, that can keep you motivated.
Over these years, there have been so many assistants who've shared stories about that they've almost quit because they never thought that the executive would say yes to a particular request. But the fact is, the leverage of most assistants, Nicki, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if assistants are invaluable to the team, if they are really performing an important service, they're a high value employee, they're going to be hard pressed to have you walk out the door, And so Olympia used to say everything is negotiable. I think your point is well taken. Sometimes we're going to have to know when it's time to go and move on. But my advice would be, please try first. Please try to have that conversation and have, as Nicki said, have the solution ready. I want to say one other thing is that today I read an interesting article from Elle magazine, because there are a lot of articles right now about women and Women's History Month, et cetera. And this one was about stop calling women amazing. That the women who were, putting in 16-hour days and, just creating a workflow a day when they're, getting up hideously early and not going to bed till very late and getting very little sleep. And by the way, how many hours of sleep do you get?
Well, I used to get probably like 5 to 6. And now, since we're working from home, I'm getting, more like 7 to 8, which is
that's awesome. They say 7 and 8. Ariana Huffington is very big on the whole sleep thing. But this article, the gist of it is that we need to set each other up for success and to not create these unsustainable schedules. that, that other people look at and say, oh my God, you function on 3 hours of sleep. How remarkable, how amazing. Well, you're going to keel over one of these days, right? I would agree that we need to support one another for success. And I congratulate you, Nicki, because clearly you're doing fantastic work with your team. And you're a person who's like been there, done that, and so you practice what you preach with your team, don't you?
Yes, and it's not me at all. I mean, I think it is definitely my team and how they support each other, and so I think it's because usually I go to my team and ask them for their advice or how should we do this process, and so a lot of them are coming up with the ideas and with the processes, and they support each other. So I would definitely say it's not me at all. And
I would gently argue that, I mean, most assistants would agree that leadership starts at the top and that you set an environment that makes it safe to share those ideas. And I wish more leaders understood the strategy that you use, which is to turn it over to them, give your folks the responsibility that they're so capable of having. Oh my gosh. Well, Nicki, do you have any last words, burning ideas that you want to share with our group about being a working mom and a successful assistant at the same time, as we know that this role is not disappearing, right? Contrary to some publications.
Exactly. Yeah. The role is definitely not disappearing. I think, as we think about how being innovative and thinking about how we can create more time for our executives. And I think what I would leave everybody with is there's certain things we can't control. Like especially like if the environment you're working in is client driven, certain high expectations on turnarounds, different things like that. Some of those you can't control. What you can control is empathy towards one another, supporting one another, where long term, where you want to work and what culture you're choosing to work for, I think is important. And so I think the only thing we can do is worry about the things we can make an impact on and what we can control, and then let the other things kind of go if you can't control it.
Fantastic. Well, Nicki Cave, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope everyone on this call has learned one or two or three things that you can use immediately. Nicki has such a deep skill set and deep experience in this profession. And she's, she is an ultimate assistant because she's not only knowledgeable about so many things, but she's so generous to want to share it with other people through her writing, through her mentoring. And so with that, I love you as an example, Nicki. So please connect with her. Please share the replay with others who can benefit from what Nicki had to share about being a working mom. The challenges are going to keep coming. So our move is to collaborate and to cooperate with each other and to support one another as strongly as we possibly can. That's our move. The days of doing this are so over, right, Nicki?
Yes.
So done.
Yes, we'll be much stronger for it.
I hope you will check out the Be the Ultimate Assistant website for information on upcoming training workshops. And if you're interested in having Vicky Evans come into your company to do some training around leadership and organization and technology, we'd love to hear from you. I know you're a big fan of Vicky's, right?
Yes, 100%. We worked with her a lot.
Yeah. So, we are a community. We are so much better together. So happy Women's History Month. Thanks for kicking it off with us. Next week on Wednesday, March 10th, we're back to Wednesdays next week. Our special guest will be Nadine King. Nadine King, who is doing so much great work advocating for Black assistants in our country And I want to give Nadine an opportunity to share with everybody the amazing groundbreaking work she's doing, as we did today with Nicki's groundbreaking work at BCG. So with that, Jennifer Wilner, thank you so much for your help behind the scenes. And I wish you all a great rest of the day. Thank you for being here. This is Heads Together.